Hello again from Fired Up. I'm your host for the show, Bob Irwin. We're broadcasting from Rigel Studios here in Las Vegas, Nevada. This show is about guns, related politics, and self-defense issues. Fired Up is on my website, Fired Up with Bob Irwin, as well as the American Guns and Glory Network, YouTube, and numerous other media. If your local internet provider doesn't carry Fired Up, ask them to do that and we'll help you through. A new show is posted every Thursday around 5 p.m. Pacific time. The audio feed is rebroadcast for radio listeners on Saturdays at noon on the Nevada Talk Network. You can check out KELY1230.com for a station in your area of Nevada. If you have questions or comments, send me an email to bob@firedupmail.com or leave a message on my office recorder, which is 702-257-1060. Leave contact information or I can't call you back. There are several hundred defensive uses of firearms each week in the United States, most never truthfully covered by the mainstream media. I always select a few for each show for my listeners' information. Most are good shootings, some are questionable, some are just plain wrong, but all are educational for those of you that keep a defensive firearm in your home or carry one for self-defense in your vehicle or on the street. Individual incidents are generally adjudicated under local law, so the advice given here may not apply in the area where you live. Advice from a local gun-savvy defense attorney is always recommended. Stories are often paraphrased for clarity by translation from police jargon, what I call lawyer speak, and regional accents into more common standard American English. Incidents are as reported, but the names of the individuals involved are always deleted. The identification of the cops, the lawyers, and the media are generally used. So here we go. Our first story comes from CBS 13 in Sacramento, California. Reports December 26, 2020 in Stockton, California. A local woman shot a 32-year-old male neighbor who forced his way into her home on Christmas Day. This happened just before 3 on Christmas afternoon in the 1700 block of Quail Lakes Drive. The Stockton Police Department said the 32-year-old man was involved in the dispute with his neighbor and was shot after allegedly pushing his way in to the 29-year-old woman's apartment and assaulting her and her family. Stockton police said their suspect, the 32-year-old male neighbor, forced his way into the woman's home and began the assault, which prompted the woman to shoot the 32-year-old. His identity has not been released. The male suspect was taken to the hospital to be treated for what police described as a non-life-threatening gunshot wound. The case has been handed over to the San Joaquin County District Attorney's Office for review. Comments here. Under California regulations, this clearly reasonable self-defense shooting could be problematic. It was the victim's firearm securely locked up and stored unloaded? As she was able to access it quickly, maybe not. Were escape options considered? Were clear verbal warnings used, enabling the intruder to rethink his intrusion? It appears that this is the appropriate time for her to shut up and lawyer up. You never know in California. Always get an attorney in the case. Story number 2. The Washington Times reports an Associated Press story on December 28th, 2020 in Wentzville, Missouri. An attempted carjacking was stopped when the intended victim drew a gun of her own. Wentzville police said the confrontation happened around 7:30 in the morning on Saturday in the parking lot in the 1900 block of Wentzville Parkway. The intended victim reported that she noticed 4 people nearby while she was seated in her vehicle. A teenage boy then approached and demanded her vehicle at gunpoint. The intended victim then apparently displayed her own firearm and refused to leave her vehicle. That prompted the teen with the gun, along with 3 other suspects, to flee. When responding officers arrived, they arrested a 17-year-old, 2 15-year-olds, and an 11-year-old. Authorities said one of the 15-year-olds had a firearm and he was charged with attempted robbery. The other 3 were charged with conspiracy to commit robbery. Comments here, younger and younger teenagers are involved in criminal activity. Children raised in these violent neighborhoods often only have gangsters and drug dealers as role models. It is certainly reasonable for their intended victims to fight back in order to survive. With the expectation of our upcoming Biden-Harris administration to disarm ordinary citizens through firearm restrictions, magazine capacity limitations, wait times for government permission to purchase, we can only expect the carnage on the street is going to get worse. There are already signs of that. Just pick up a newspaper. We're going to break for a moment here for my self-indulgent commercial about my latest book that exists, and you can get it on Kindle, Amazon Kindle. Check it out. I'll be back in just a few minutes. Thank you. My latest book, Self-Defense with Firearms, Use of Force in Nevada, is now available on Amazon Kindle for $4.95. You can download it now. It contains examples of dozens of shootings and pointing a firearm cases that I personally experienced in my 24 years in law enforcement, or where I testified in court or deposition as a firearm and use of force expert. The book is about the use of firearms in defense of yourself and others in my home state of Nevada. I have appeared as an expert witness in Nevada courts dozens of times, and that experience has shown me the necessity of putting pen to paper once again. Nevada state law as printed can be misleading to those of you who read it, as it is written in legal jargon, what I usually call lawyer speak. These statutes are also bent or even broken by the courts in their everyday decisions that we generally call case law. Those are rulings that say this or that statute does not apply in a particular incident and similar cases. That causes the law you are depending on when you make a decision to use your firearm only partially or not apply at all to your actions. Relevant Nevada statute numbers are included here and there, so readers may look up current wording on the Nevada State website. Teaching firearms in 28 law enforcement academies, including cadets from 26 different Nevada agencies, personally instructing over 30,000 concealed firearm permit students and 20,000 private security officers, I've discovered a lot of commonalities in deadly force incidents. Less than 100 pages, this book offers advice that can save lives and costs of expensive defense lawyers to reduce your losses in the inevitable civil lawsuits that follow these incidents. Get a copy, learn how to avoid, prepare for, and react to life-threatening situations. And we are back. Third story here. This comes from Fox 13 Memphis. Reports December 26, 2020, in Tunica, Mississippi, a convenience store clerk shot a 22-year-old male suspect who was attempting to rob a convenience store. According to the Tunica County Sheriff's Office, just after 6:30 in the evening on December 23rd, they received a call about an armed robbery at a local store. The suspect walked into the store with a handgun and demanded money from the store clerk. Instead of complying with the suspect's demands, the store clerk shot the suspect. Although wounded, the would-be robber fled the scene on foot. Police said forensic evidence determined that the 22-year-old apparently would-be robber was from Horn Lake, Mississippi, was the person responsible for the crime. That evidence also led them to a home where they learned that someone had dropped the 22-year-old off at a nearby hospital for treatment. Officials said there will be criminal charges against him as this investigation is ongoing. Comments in this, I would imagine that the forensic evidence at the scene was more likely a video where the would-be robber was easily recognizable. Whatever led to his quick capture, it's another example of business owners or employees getting tired of having their lives put at risk over a few dollars available to an armed robber. There is so much street crime nowadays that the criminal justice system is simply overwhelmed. There are not enough cops, prosecutors, courts, or jails to keep up. In states with limited budgets like Mississippi, these problems are, of course, magnified. Can you imagine how stupid the calls to defund the police sound in Mississippi? These guys are probably buying their own gas to get to the calls. We're going to break for another short commercial. I will be right back. Freestyle Martial Arts, located at Jones and Russell here in Las Vegas. You can reach them at 702-551-9009. That's 702-551-9009. CCS Gunsmithing. Chris Eifelt, the man who does all the NRA help, he's at 2216 South Rainbow Boulevard near Sahara. He can be reached at 702-365-1732. Once again, 702-365-1732. Jerry Creed, a trust attorney. If you have a firearms trust or need one, this is your guy. You can reach Jerry at 702-806-7777. That is 702-806-7777. CCW Maggie is found all over the internet. You can reach her by phone at 702-375-5900. That's 702-375-5900. All sorts of firearms training, ladies only classes. She is the best of the best. Call CCW Maggie. Story number 4. Multiple media sources, a lot of sources on this from 6 or 8 websites and 3 or 4 newspapers. Anyway, they report December 26, 2020 in Chicago, Illinois, a would-be armed robber walked into a Metro PCS store in Humboldt Park just before 7 in the evening. The store is located in the 3200 block of West Chicago Avenue. He presented a handgun and demanded property. A 29-year-old male employee who holds a valid concealed carry license and a firearm owner's identification card produced his own handgun and fired shots toward the offender. The offender sustained a gunshot wound to the chest and was transported to Stoger Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. Police say that 2 firearms were recovered, one from the employee and a second from the offender. The incident remains under investigation by detectives. Comments here initially. This story led me to a Chicago Sun-Times report about recent Chicago shootings. I'm going to read you this article in abbreviated format from the Chicago Sun-Times. They apparently keep up with all this stuff, so you should check them out. At least their headline says at least 8 people were killed and 22 others wounded in citywide shootings over the extended holiday weekend. In the latest fatal attack, a man was shot to death Monday morning on the Lower West Side. About 4 a.m., the man, age 57, was headed south in a vehicle in the 3200 block of South Wood Street when someone in a gold-colored SUV opened fire, striking him multiple times in the back. The man was taken to Stoger Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. A person was killed Sunday morning in Vittram Park on the southwest side. That male, believed to be between 17 and 20 years old, was standing in the 5500 block of South Archer Avenue about 9 a.m. when he was shot multiple times. He was brought to Christ Medical Center in Oak Lawn with gunshot wounds to his back and shoulder. Police said he was pronounced dead a short time later. Earlier Sunday morning, 3 people were shot, one fatally in South Chicago. Just before 4 in the early morning, a 24-year-old woman and 2 men, both 36 years old, were outside in the 3200 block of South Paxton Avenue when someone fired shots. The Cook County Medical Examiner's Office said the woman was sitting in a parked vehicle at the time of the shooting. She was taken to University of Chicago Medical Center, where she was pronounced dead. One man was grazed on the neck and shot in the leg. The other man was also shot in the leg. Both were transported to the same hospital in fair condition. On Saturday night, a man was found dead with a gunshot wound to his chest in Englewood on the south side. He was found in an alley about 10 in the evening in the 7400 block of South Stewart Avenue and pronounced dead at the scene. Witnesses told investigators the man was talking to someone in a vehicle when shots were fired. On Christmas Day, 3 people were fatally shot. The latest attack that day happened in Gage Park on the southwest side. Officers responded just after 9 in the evening to the 3300 block of West 52nd Street and found a 20-year-old man unresponsive with multiple gunshot wounds to the chest and the abdomen. He was pronounced dead at the scene. About an hour earlier, a man was found fatally shot in Chatham on the south side. A male subject, age unknown, was found lying unresponsive after being shot on the side of the street in the 900 block of East 82nd Street, police said. He was pronounced dead at the scene. The weekend's earliest reported fatal attack, a 57-year-old was gunned down in Grand Crossing on the south side. That man was on the sidewalk at 2:30 in the afternoon in the 7300 block of South Kenwood Avenue when someone fired shots, striking him in the side, abdomen, and head. He was taken to University of Chicago Medical Center, where he died 9 hours later, according to the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office. At least 20 other people were wounded in shootings within the city limits between 5 p.m. Thursday and 5 a.m. Monday. The prior weekend, 6 people were killed and 32 others wounded in shootings across Chicago. Comments here. Chicago has nearly the strictest firearms laws in the nation, exceeded only by New York City, Washington, D.C., and a few others. All have been Democrat-controlled left-wing administrations for many, many years. That is statistical proof that gun control doesn't stop crime, but actually increases crime by disarming victims and releasing criminals. Politicians may lie, and often do, but numbers don't lie. That's the real numbers, folks. Gun laws, restrictions, cause deaths. We're going to break for another short word from a few of our friends and associates. I'll be right back. Attorney Donald J. Green, a common guest of mine on Fired Up. He can be reached at 702-409-8239. He specializes in gun case litigation. He is your man, Don Green, 702-409-8239. And Battlefield Vegas, my new kind of home for this show. They're on Circus Circus Drive, directly behind the Circus Circus Hotel and Casino. You can find them there with CCW classes and an amazing place for gun rentals, everything you could possibly imagine. Check out, if you're in town as a tourist, check out battlefieldvegas.com. And we are back. Here we go again. Story number 5, KOMO News reports December 28, 2020 in Kenmore, Washington, that is Washington State. An incident unfolded just before 1 in the morning as deputies and medics responded to a report of a shooting at People's Storage in the 6900 block of Northeast 181 First Street First. 181st Street. There we go. Tim Meyer of the King County Sheriff's Office reports a woman, no age given, was shot during a break-in at the Kenmore storage facility. She was found at the scene with non-life-threatening gunshot wound. She was taken to Harborview Medical Center in Seattle for treatment. Tim Meyer added a preliminary investigation found the resident caretaker at the facility interrupted the woman as she was attempting to break in and steal items. At some point, the woman pulled out a gun. The caretaker, who was also armed, responded by firing a single shot which struck the woman in her shoulder. The woman will be booked into King County Jail once she is released from the hospital. The investigation is ongoing. Obviously, this just happened. Comments here, a armed female burglar is a bit unusual without someone else helping. An accomplice or at least a getaway driver, boyfriend or girlfriend seems most likely. In any event, the intended victim should always assume there are additional perps and stay behind hard cover until the cops arrive. In too many incidents, victims have been hurt when they let their guard down by keeping a narrow focus on the first threat. If you are watching over property, always have whatever defensive tools are locally allowed, a working cell phone, and more than one flashlight. They always fail when you least expect it. Story number 6, KBTV Fox 4 Beaumont reports December 28, 2020 in Port Arthur, Texas. Police say the owner of a home in the 2500 block of 18th Street shot and killed a home invasion suspect who forced his way into the home with 2 other suspects. Police say a 29-year-old homeowner armed himself with a rifle and fired several shots at the 27-year-old suspect to protect his young children who were in the home. The suspect died inside the home. 2 other suspects left. No one else was injured. Justice of the Peace Tom Gillum III has ordered an autopsy. According to the Port Arthur PD, officers responded at about 8:30 p.m. Sunday to a home invasion robbery with a shots fired report. The preliminary investigation revealed 3 armed assailants forcibly entered a home in the 2500 block of 18th Street as the female resident was arriving home. The commotion alerted a male resident who armed himself with a rifle and confronted the would-be robbers to protect his young children who were in the home. That's redundant. That's a police report versus a news report. One of the robbers was shot and killed during the encounter. The incident is currently under investigation by the Port Arthur Police Department's Major Crime Team. If you have any other information about this or any other crime, call Port Arthur Police at 409-983-8600 or Crime Stoppers of Southeast Texas. Their number is 409-833-TIPS. That's 409-833-8477. You won't be asked for your name, and you may be eligible for a cash reward. Comments: when shots are fired, as in this case, most would-be home burglars leave very quickly, as these did. The resident did not pursue, which is correct, as the threat was over. There is nothing to gain in chasing down fleeing perps. If the bad guys run, it's hard to explain how you were still in danger when you were shooting. In a few cases I have reviewed, an autopsy discovered unknown facts. In one incident, the guy was trying to break into what he thought was his own house, and he thought his wife had changed the locks. Sometimes those under the influence of alcohol or drugs are on the wrong block or thought it was his friend's home, etc. Use loud verbal warnings, stay behind hard cover, and on the phone with 911. They will hear everything, including your warnings. We are at the end. You can check out my recent shows at firedupwithboberwin.com. I'll be back next Thursday on my website, firedupwithboberwin.com, the American Guns and Glory Network, and numerous other websites, television, and radio stations. While watching any media, just click on subscribe, and new shows will be sent to your phone or computer automatically. My logo merchandise, hats, shirts, and books, mostly books, are available at Battlefield Vegas, just behind Circus Circus on the Las Vegas Strip. If you are ever in Las Vegas, Battlefield Vegas is a must-see attraction. You can shoot a minigun or any of hundreds of firearms, or even crush a car with an Abrams tank at their associated outdoor facility. They do provide transportation to get there. Contact info@battlefieldvegas.com. Thank you for watching Fired Up. I'll be back next week with another show. Be sure to watch my little disclaimer at the end now, so you understand all the things we can and cannot do on this show. Have a great new year. It's got to be better than this last year. I think all viewers will agree. Happy New Year.